But I do want to get to the latest in Pac-12 expansion because we have worked really hard on this story. I think you know that we have a lot of sources in the right spots on this story. And I think if you look at what this process has been for the Pac-12, there certainly is a lot of intrigue about what's next for the Pac-12. And I don't think there's any doubt that what is next is how aggressively are they going to chase the Mountain West. And I think UNLV is that team. How aggressively will the Pac-12 and how aggressively are they willing to pursue the Mountain West? Because right now, as we've told you, the Mountain West and the Pac-12 continue to have conversations. A couple of times this week, they have spoken about, hey, what are we doing? What does our relationship look like? The Mountain West and the Pac-12 certainly got off on the right foot. Hey, we have a framework agreement. Remember a year ago, we have a framework agreement for a merger. But we're not going to be able to knock that down because the Pac-12's in court with the leaving members, and we've got to get that settled. We're going to do a scheduling alliance. Okay, great. Football schedule. Hey, here's what we're doing for 2024. Okay, great. And then radio silence. And as we've told you on this show repeatedly, they were trying to figure out the who's, the hows, and the whens of a merger. When is Oregon State and Washington State going to join the Mountain West? And some people have told us, certain sources, well-placed, have told us that it was never the Pac-2's plan to just up and plant their flag in the Mountain West and call it the Mountain West. That was never going to be the play. And that's where the wedge was driven between the two sides. Was it going to be a Mountain West conference? Was it going to be a Pac-12 conference? And the Pac-12 said, hey, we can remain in a position to have an automatic qualifier. We need you to come over here, lock, stock, and barrel. Those talks never bore any fruit. There was always almost, and I shouldn't say always, nearly from the beginning, there was animus between the two sides about who was going to run this conference. I think it is very clear that Gloria Nevarez is one of the most respected administrators in all of college athletics. I think it was assumed that she would just take the helm of whatever this new conference was going to be. The Pac-2 never had that in their sights. And it came down to this idea that the Pac-2 wanted to get into the Big 12. That's really where the impetus for this latest round of expansion happened, because as we reported and now has been widely reported, the Pac-2, Washington State and Oregon State, made every attempt that they could to get into the Big 12. Brett Yormark never really entertained that conversation. It's just not in the cards now. But what really pushed this forward was the UConn story about UConn being very close. They're trying to work it out. They're going to join the Big 12. Now, as we know, that didn't happen because UConn is unwilling to give up football. And members of the Big 12 were unwilling to pay for UConn to play football. What that did is that took a shot over the bow at Oregon State and Washington State, who were like, but wait, I thought you weren't expanding right now. And I think it brought some clarity to where Oregon State and Washington State thought they were versus where they actually are. And that was, we've got to get aggressive. They went and got these four members out of the Mountain West Conference, which, as we know now, is not their final move. And according to people we've spoken to, I think what you are seeing is the Mountain West trying to figure out how they can survive, because the Pac-12 has made it pretty clear that they are not done taking teams from the Mountain West, but they are not going to take the entire conference lock, stock, and barrel. They have a very clear understanding that, again, as I've said for multiple months and almost a year on this show, San Jose State does not give you the Bay Area. It does not. Just as the Big 12 was acutely aware that SMU was not delivering the city and county of Dallas, it is why Rice is not in the Big 12 right now, because does Rice bring you Houston? It does not. That's the exact reason that Rice is not in the Pac-12 and is not in the Mountain West on a larger scale or in a larger G5 conference, because Rice does not deliver Houston. That belongs to the University of Houston, who's in the Big 12 already. That's the the crisis of existence. And I hate to use the cliche term, Jake, but this is the existential crisis that I think the Mountain West finds themselves in.
Yeah, and I think it's the situation that's created in college football time and time again. It's a situation where, something out of your control changes or takes place, which then causes your conference to be in peril. Because again, obviously the Mountain West had nothing to do with the collapse of the original Pac-12 as we knew it, right? Like the Mountain West had nothing to do with that. That was all the Pac-12's own doing, bad leadership, bad control of money, essentially, no TV deal coming in. Like we know how that situation went down. And I think what's hard is that college football and college athletics specifically is turning into very much a dog eat dog world, right? Where like you have a situation for the Mountain West where they're humming along. They've got a good conference. They're competing at the top of the FCS level. And then the Pac-12 falls apart. The Pac-2 tries to figure out where they can, what their next move is. And now all of a sudden we're sitting here on the show having to talk about, well, what's the Mountain West going to do? Where does the Mountain West go from here? Is the path better to try and rebuild the conference? Is it better to try to negotiate a merger? Like you're putting this conference in a really difficult position. And I don't mean to cry a river for the Mountain West, but I do think this is hardly the first time we've seen this, and it won't be the last time we've seen this, which is why I think we get these commissioners, the most recent example being Tim Pernetti in the American, trying to position his conference saying, oh, everyone's in alignment, everything's great. But we all know what's actually taking place. People are worried. People are there's a lot of anxiety in the room, if you will. And I just don't know that that's great for college athletics. I think at some point there has to be, and I don't know if it's like a regulation or rules or just an understanding. Like there's got to be something that gets done about just conference melts down. The remnants are trying to build back up, and we're going to destroy this other conference to do it.
Remnants is a very interesting word because I do think that's a big part of it. These, whatever is left behind, we continually see that G5s are ravaged. We continually see that, conferences like the old Metro Conference, the old Big East Conference, and now obviously the Big East has rebuilt itself. But you look at how much turmoil the Big East was thrown into with UConn talking to the Big 12. And that's the life you live as a G5. That's the life you live when Tim Pernetti does not have leverage over the Pac-12. And I think that's the problem for Gloria Nevarez. Would Gloria Nevarez, if she could go back, get into business with the Pac-12? She would. I don't have any doubt about it. It is good for the Mountain West on its face to be in business with Oregon State and Washington State. But what you have to figure out is, how do we stop the beast from feeding on our children?
Well, and I think that if we, wind the clocks back and look at what exactly happened after it was clear the Pac-12 was not going to survive in its original form. Yeah. Like, I really do believe if Cal and Stanford had not been so panicky about it and had not been so quick to make a decision, that we're probably having a different conversation. But again, in terms of I don't think West.
Cal and Stanford made the wrong decision.
Yeah, but
I don't believe they did.
It may not have been the wrong decision, but I also don't
think
to go
to the ACC.
To go to the ACC. Yeah, it may not have been the wrong decision, but I also don't think it was the right one. I think that Cal and Stanford were put in a position, again, much like the Mountain West, where they were not responsible for the position they found themselves in a sense. But they felt like, hey, we have to go somewhere. And I think, unfortunately, going to the ACC, obviously, what are ACC schools making? I think it's like 40. Like you're making 40 a year, you're fine. But it's not ideal. And my point here is that if Cal and Stanford had been able to find a way to stay west, and if this had been, because think about it, if we had been talking about, hey, there's 4 schools left in the Pac-12, we're going to add these 4 out of the Mountain West, we wouldn't be talking about UNLV. We wouldn't be here.
I think Cal and Stanford did everything that they could have done, and I think they handled it perfectly. I will disagree with you on that. I think if you're not in a power conference right now, your world is is hurting. And I think you look at Oregon State and Washington State fans are fantastic. Passion, they care, and they are twisting in the wind.
Facts.
Because the brutal truth is, it does not matter. If you are Oregon State and Washington State, it does not almost matter who you add. UNLV, Memphis, Tulane, you're not going to get an automatic qualifier. You are going to have to fight your way to the top of the pile every single year for one spot in the college football playoff until it changes, until the Super League comes in and you have college football as a minor league system for the NFL, which in theory it is already. But I think we're moving in practice to that on a day in, day out basis. Every single year we get closer to 2031, which is when I think it actually comes into practice and it's a way of life. You've got to figure out how to survive. And if you are Oregon State and Washington State, you're not going to be a power conference. And you are not going to have a designation as an automatic qualifier. The Pac-12 gets an automatic qualifier. Because again, and I know we've had this argument on this show repeatedly, I get it. There's no such thing as a power conference. But you cannot sit here and truly believe that the Boise States of the world, who perhaps is the largest G5 football program that we know, right? Like that is success on TV. They've played it. They've played in big games. They're maybe the most relevant. Great, all of it. They are not in any way, shape, or form guaranteed a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, and the simple example, and this is for all the Twitter haters that were lighting up my dude's Twitter last week over here, trying to say that, oh, there's no such thing. Okay, yeah, there may not be a such thing as on paper as a power conference, but if I said to you, hey, there's one final spot in the college football playoff, Boise State or Clemson, Boise State or Oregon, Boise State or I don't know, A&M even though A&M is probably not going to be in that picture, but you get my point. Like
it almost doesn't matter. Compare
matter.
Boise to any power conference team. Do you ever worry that Ohio State doesn't have a seat at the table?
Nope.
Never. And I use Ohio State regularly. And again, I understand I'm biased to the Midwest because I grew up in Chicago. Totally get that.
This is a Big Ten show. We know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why say that? Why bring that in? My point is, I don't ever worry about Ohio State having access to the college football, the highest level of college football competition. They will compete for a national championship every single year. And it's the same thing as the NFL. And I'll continue to compare college football and the NFL. I know, name a team in the NFL right now.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not competing for an NFL championship this year.
Houston Texans.
Not competing for an NFL championship this year. Not good enough.
New York Jets.
Not competing for an NFL championship this year. Not good enough. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Three-peat.
Absolutely competing for an NFL championship this year. You can look at my Chicago Bears are not competing for an NFL championship
but I
this
think
year.
The key difference, and I think this is why the Super League is so necessary, the key difference is opportunity is the same in the NFL.
Yes.
All teams have the same opportunity. Now, what they do with that opportunity, obviously, is what makes the NFL great. That's what we all latch onto in the NFL. And I think at the college football level, I think the problem is, and this may be the best point of the whole thing with this Boise State conversation, is that Boise State does not have the same opportunity to get to a national championship game as Ohio State. And the first reaction is going to be, well, what do you mean? They can play the game. They just got to beat teams. Yeah, but the problem is that they don't operate with the same amount of money. They don't have the same opportunities in the portal.
They don't have access to talent and resources.
They don't have that. And so in reality, sure, is there a Power 5, designation on paper? Maybe not. But we all know how it works in the real world.
Pick the worst team in the SEC. Vanderbilt has a clearer path than Oregon State to the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And that sucks, and you might hate that. Adding UNLV to the Pac-12 doesn't fix that.
No.
You are going to have to compete with the AACs, every conference in the G5. Why is it so important that the Mountain West survives? because it raises all ships when you have more competition. But it's not, if you're the Pac-12, and again, I think this is probably where the rubber meets the road, and you don't have to like it, but I think it's reality.
Right.
They had no choice but to savage the Mountain West.
Right.
They took their 4 best brands. They had no choice but to do that because that's the only way you survive. And they're putting the Mountain West in the exact same position that the Pac-12 is currently in. How are you going to get to and stay at 8? How are you going to do that? And if you're the Mountain West, and I love my friends in Sacramento, hello, good morning. Does Sac State have the money to go from FCS to FBS?
Or the willingness? Because again,
The fortitude.
like I think that people really discount this part of it. Like, yes, it is a conversation about, do you actually like physically have the money? Sure. But does the leadership at the school and in the athletic department have the want to, the desire, the willingness to go out and say, yeah, we're Sacramento State. Like, obviously we're at the FCS level, but we really feel like if we do X, Y, and Z, we could potentially, in the next 10 years, because that's how you have to look at it in football, in my opinion, at this level. Hey, in the next 10 years, we're here. Where can we get to? And do we want to get there? Are we committed? And I'm not,
committed?
You're not going to convince me that a San Jose State or a Sacramento State or, these lower end FCS schools in terms of athletics want that. I don't think they do.
Because and I don't mean to ramble, and I really want to get your comments in here, but ask yourself this. If you're the Mountain West and you're chasing Sac State, great football program, great community support, all of it. What's the upside for Sac State? Are you going to make more money in FBS? You're probably not going to make noticeably more money. I think it's $5 million. It's a lump sum payment to go from FCS to FBS.
Right.
A university like Sacramento State, do they really have $5 million in the want to? And again, the fortitude. I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
The fortitude to do what? Pay $5 million? No. To profit share, because now you have to pay for profit share. You have to upgrade your facilities. You have to, everything goes up because you're a bigger football program now. More faculty, more staff, more training staff. Like, everything goes up.
Football program on the P&L sheet, not in the real world.
And
that's the problem.
It does not give you access to the national championship.
And that same question you just asked as to why a Sacramento State would want to jump up is the same question I've been asking since this story came out. Why does Boise State and San Diego State and Fresno State and Colorado State, why did they want to go to the Pac-12? Because you're not making more money, in my opinion. You're not going to make some huge amount. We're not talking about getting 30, 40 mil a year per school, obviously.
You're looking at $10 to $12 million per school, allegedly. If they are able to, and I think this is where, not to meander because this is going to go way out of frame, but this is where Memphis comes in.
Yep.
Memphis does very well in national televised games.
Mm-hmm.
So if you add Memphis and Tulane's a no-brainer, and you add UNLV, and this is all hyperbole, but let's say you add those three. Do you have more access to the national championship game, to the college football playoff championship game? No, you do not.
And I think that's pretty clear that the problem is that I don't even feel like that's a hot take. I don't think that's even controversial. Like,
but nobody thinks about it that way. Though.
I know.
That's what. Look, I'm just little Monty over here
little
on the
Monty.
YouTube machine. I'm just trying to get people to take your emotion out of it. And Memphis fan, God bless you, because you're passionate, and I love that you're in our comments section. I love it. But take your emotion out of it and ask yourself, are we better in our current situation than we would be in the Pac-12? Yes, you are better in your current situation. The Pac-12, I understand. The Pac-12 looks sexy. The Pac-12,
But why? This is why?
Because it's West Coast. They've got a brand. They've got, people believe that, hey, if they can get back to 8, they'll have whatever you're imagining you'll have. And I agree that if you can go from less than $2 million in TV revenue up to $10 million in TV revenue, that's great. But the cost of doing business at that level is significantly higher. Now, that's a little less for somebody like Memphis, who already has an incredible investment. And I agree that Memphis basketball needs more exposure.
Agreed.
I think Memphis is nobody wants to talk about the fact that Memphis is a really good basketball university. Really good. They need more exposure. If you put them in the Mountain, that doesn't help them. If you put them in the whatever other G5, but if you put them in the Pac-12, at least there's some cachet about the history of that brand, the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But it does not. And be clear about this. Under any circumstance, it does not move you closer to even a spot in the college football playoff. And it certainly doesn't move you closer to the college football playoff championship game.
And maybe that's not the goal for these schools. I mean, maybe that's where we're, maybe we need to change how we think about that as observers of this situation. I mean, maybe the goal is just to, double your TV revenue. But then again, my right off the top of my head, my next question is, okay, well, you may be doubling your TV revenue, but are you increasing profitability? Because I don't think you are. You may be making more money, but again, with all the things we've talked about here, not to repeat all that, but like with all these things we're talking about, are you actually making more money? Because that's where I feel like, this whole Pac-12 looking sexy and being attractive and, people wanting to get on board with it. That's where I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think the Pac-12 has done a great job marketing this opportunity and making it look better than it truly is, because this would be a different conversation if we were talking about the Pac-12 again, still having the ability to take a real shot at getting the playoff committee to designate them as a power conference. And that's why I know we disagree on the Calford thing, but that's why I think the Calford thing is so important, because if you had Cal and Stanford, and I know they're not powerhouses athletically right now, but they are power level, universities. So if you had 4 as like your foundation, and then you were adding on top of that, then I think we could have a legitimate conversation about getting back to power status. But you don't have that.
And again, in the AAC, Mike Oresco, the former commissioner, let's not forget the TV deal he negotiated. They're making, I think, $8 million a year. Outside of Army, who I think has their deal is with CBS. So I just don't. If you're Memphis, I would watch what you wish for, because I don't think this gives you greater access. Now, if the Pac-12 swoops in and takes Memphis and Tulane, I have no idea what the AAC does. Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of that league, is a good dude. He has not shown to be an elite operator. At least not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what he does. I think the reality here is, here's my belief. Here's my opinion on what I think will happen. I believe that the Mountain West is going to lose probably 2 more teams. I think that UNLV is in a precarious spot, because I think part of the Mountain West negotiations is that the Pac-12 won't take UNLV. And I think it's why we don't have an agreement, because the Mountain West is trying to find a way to survive. And they have, as I told you last week, they are negotiating with the Pac-12 about how much of this league can the Pac-12 take. And if they take, because you look at what's left, and I think this is the hard part, and Mountain West fans, please don't lose your mind over this, because I know that Air Force fans are very passionate, and I've heard you, I've read your comments, I get it. And San Jose State fans, I don't know even how you found this channel, but I appreciate you being here. But you are not in any way, shape, or form New Mexico and UNLV, who I think are the only 2 legitimate candidates, because I do think that the holdup for UNLV is twofold. Are they tied to, they are trying to understand if they are tied to UNR, Nevada Reno, who's also in the conference. And right now, I don't believe that the Pac-12 has the ability to extend invitations to Mountain West teams, because if they do, I think Gloria Navarez has a court filing sitting on her lawyer's desk just waiting for that to happen.
Right.
And nobody, and I mean nobody in this situation wants to go to court.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay lawyers to go to court and fight. And I think that's why they're trying to get a negotiated settlement of, hey, we'll take X, Y, and Z, and we'll leave the rest of your conference alone. And if Gloria can stay at 8, I think that is a real possibility. And I also think it's interesting. I confirmed yesterday with sources close that Utah State would be a candidate for the Pac-12, but their scandal in the situation they're going through eliminates them from contention to go to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 could not currently extend them an offer because of the situation that Utah State is dealing with, unfortunately, because I would love to see our friends up in Logan, Utah get a shot at a higher profile, but frankly, they have not earned it in recent years because they have been a mess. They have absolutely been a mess. And I think that that's why I believe, from what I've heard and what I've been told, UNLV and New Mexico would be the likely candidates, because I do believe the Pac-12 really would like to add UNLV.
I just hope that when all this is said and done, when we get a little bit of calming in the water, after you got to 8, or maybe 10 at that point, once you're done adding schools, what's next in this situation? Because I think if you're not thinking about that now as a conference, and, if Scott Barnes and company, are not thinking about like, hey, like we add the schools, we check that off the list.
Yep.
Now what? And I think that now what portion is obviously a TV deal and figuring out how you're going to get carriage and distribution. That I only bring that up because I just think that fans and observers like to think, oh, well, they've had the schools all said and done, we're good to go. Let's start playing football games. But actually, the road is so much longer than that. And I think that you have to keep that in mind when we're talking about like, hey, like right now we're working on it. It's the 19th of September. October is right around the corner. And frankly, March Madness is going to be here in like 5 seconds. And I think that when you start thinking about the time going by, like basketball shares and getting a football schedule done and like all that stuff like really matters. And every day that goes by that you don't add these schools and get this done, I think is not great for the Pac-12.
And, again, I was talking to a friend of mine that was very passionate about UNLV, and he made a really good point. They've got to get this done in the near term. I think the Pac-12 has to get the 10 teams as soon as possible, because at that point, once you add those 10, now you just have a pile of parts. Now you got to build the house.
Yeah.
Right? You got to lay the foundation, put the walls up, put the roof on, all that. And all of that stuff, all of those parts, once you have all of your member institutions, now you can go to the CW and say, because I'm told that the Pac-12 is in regular consult with the CW, because the CW has shown the want and desire, especially if this Live Golf PGA thing gets done and you don't have the Live Golf Tour, because not many people watched that. Frankly, it hasn't been a ratings boom for CW, but it is a foothold in sports on the weekends.
Right.
There is no doubt that the affiliate stations of the CW want football on Saturdays. And if you can expand across 3 time zones, Pacific Central and Pacific Mountain and Central in the Pac-12, the CW is happy to have you. And I think that is a big one. And I do believe that they will end up on Prime Video for their streaming partnerships. That gives you $10 to $12 million a year. That solidifies you. Now you can move forward with branding. Now you can move forward with, hey, Avid BR, Pac-12 football on the CW brought to you by Jake's Hair Gel. Like, that's what you're trying to move forward in.
Yes.
So I think that's a really salient point. Let's get your thoughts. As always, the comment section on the Monty Show is presented by our good friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's favorite daily fantasy app, you guys. Every single day, tens of millions of people play Prize Picks. Why haven't you gotten on the train yet? Let's go. Use the promo code Monty. It is the best daily fantasy promo I've ever seen. I am not exaggerating. Open a new account, download the Prize Picks app, open a new account, deposit $5. They're going to give you 50 more when you use the promo code Monty. You deposit 5, they'll give you 50 more. That's the magic of Prize Picks. Hook it up right now. Download the app while you're watching the show. Download the app. Put in the promo code Monty. Use the link in the description below here in our YouTube channel. Everybody watching on social, hello X or Twitter X, Facebook. Love you guys. Get on our YouTube channel. There's a link, or download the Prize Picks app right on your phone and use the promo code Monty. Jake believes that he has a winner for you tonight. Now, real quick.
I'm undefeated. I mean, you guys know that. I am. I've
well,
never
if
lost.
by undefeated, it means you don't ever win on Prize Picks. I'm with you on that.
Right.
The formula to win on Prize Picks. And let me show you this because I think it's super easy. This is what it looks like, right? And I can't really zoom that in much, but you see that green box? That's Caleb Williams. He's the NFL promo this week, and it's half a yard, 0.5 passing yards. That's a win. Caleb Williams. Now, I'm a Bears fan, so I have doubts, but I do believe that Caleb Williams can throw for half a yard.
Well, we'll see.
I have my doubts.
Right.
But I believe it's going to happen. So that's a win. All you need is 3 picks in a flex play. That means all you have to do, a flex play, is win 2 of 3, and we're going to pay you on that. It's so easy. So for Thursday Night Football, what are your Prize Picks tonight?
Okay, so I've got 2 flex plays that I'm working for the NFL and Thursday Night Football. So my first one is I did take the Caleb Williams half-yard discount. So I've got that. I've got Aaron Rodgers on what's called a demon. So it's they're going to pay you more on it, but it's a more difficult play. Aaron Rodgers for more than 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I took the same thing.
So I've got that. And then I've got Greg Zuerlein for more than 7, or I'm sorry, less than 7 kicking points.
What is your obsession with kickers on Prize Picks?
So you asked me about Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers is gonna just move the ball up and down the field. I do think he's gonna have a couple of touchdowns tonight, but I do think Greg Zuerlein is obviously gonna be a factor. Now, I don't think that he's gonna make 3 field goals and a couple extra points, but I do think that he's got 1 field goal and a couple extra points. So I think Zuerlein will have less than 7 kicking points tonight. So that's my first one. That's a $20 flex play because I have a demon on Aaron Rodgers. If I win out, that's a $70 payout right there. My other one is Aaron Rodgers on a goblin, so easier, for more than 174.5 passing yards. I've got Jacoby Brissett on a demon to throw 1 interception tonight. And I've got Zuerlein and Joey Sly combined to make more than 1 field goal of plus
Aaron
48.
Rodgers to throw 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Are you not betting against yourself? Because I'm sitting here with Joey Sly and his 1.5 field goals.
Right.
Are you telling me if Aaron Rodgers, when I say Aaron Rodgers 1.5 touchdowns more, that means you think he's going to throw 2 touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 14 points. So you think Joey Sly and the boys, you think they're going to score 20 points?
I think that
because that's 2 field goals.
Right.
So 14 out of A-Raj, 6 out of the kicker. That's 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
How confident are you the Jets will score 20 tonight?
I'm pretty confident in that. I think that's...
You are?
Yeah. Well, I think, last week what we saw against that 49er defense, they had multiple opportunities, a lot of drop passes. I think that they're capable offensively.
But the number's only 38.5.
I know it is, but I'm not going to sit here and believe that a Jacoby Brissett-led New England Patriots offense is going to be some offensive powerhouse. I think you're going to see a lot of punts out of that team tonight because the Jets defense is so good, and I think that the Jets are going to have a lot of possessions.
They gave up 23 points. The Patriots gave up 23 points to the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
And 16 to Joe Burrow.
Right.
And
but Burrow was Garbo in week 1.
He was Garbo in week 1. I hear you. But I don't know how to break this to you. That is not a lot of points. That's 39 points.
I guess
I'm a little worried about that.
The reason I took because again, I didn't just take Joey. I took Greg Zuerlein and Joey combined to have one field goal made over 48 yards.
Hey, Joey, my guy, Joey.
So all I need
me and Joey
is Joey McField goal
Joey
to take one kick at the end of the game to tie the game to send it to OT or something. You know, it's not that hard. All right.
I'll go. How about I'll go Zerline because I believe in the Jets defense.
Right.
Or the Patriots defense. So I'll go Zerline for more than 1.5. My 3 will be
field goals made.
Yes.
Okay.
My 3 will be Caleb Williams, half a passing yard.
Yeah.
A-Raj on a demon, Aaron Rodgers for 2 touchdowns.
Right.
And Greg Zerline, the Jets kicker, for 1.5 field goals made. Because if A-Raj doesn't throw 2 touchdowns, Greg Zerline's kicking field goals.
Right. Yeah.
And there is dysfunction. I know Robert Saleh doesn't want to talk about it.
Bob.
If you watch Bobby's, you watch Bobby Saleh's press conferences, he doesn't want to talk about dysfunction.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers had permission when he didn't and stuff.
I will go sputtering Jets offense tonight. Aaron? Aaron?
I want ayahuasca Achilles guy to show up.
Aaron? Please forget, because Aaron watches the show every day, the entire show and stuff.
Where is Aaron right now?
He's watching the Marty show, Monty. Aaron, I understand you own my Chicago Bears. Don't do me dirty. Throw 2 touchdowns tonight.
Yeah, I've been immunized.
I'm sure you have.